Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 78 of the MTB podcast, presented and hosted by Worldwide Cyclery. My name is Jeff, and I am joined by my co-host,
Jared,
and
Liam.
And today we are going to tell you things about mountain bikes and stuff. And what else, Jared?
Yeah, mountain bikes and stuff, exactly.
That's the point of the MTB podcast. So this episode, we're going to pack it with a few things. Quick little update on the unique and philanthropic thing that we, as in Worldwide Cyclery, are doing for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and nobody else is doing, which is, I think, interesting, and I'm really proud of. My mom sent me an email saying she was proud of me, so that was cool. We're also going to talk about a number of things, recent videos we made, upcoming videos we have for our YouTube channel, some wet weather riding tips, some new products we've seen come out that are pretty rad in the mountain bike world, some different brands and whatnot. My new bike that I did a ridiculous modification to, well, I didn't necessarily do it. You did it, Liam.
I did it.
Liam did it. And
I got some hate on the Instagram.
Yeah. We posted a reel, which is basically just a 15-second video on Instagram of what we did. And people freaked out. I had to put a pinned comment on there so people could read that and understand.
Reasonably so. I mean, it was wild.
People were losing it. It was pretty interesting. I think it's got like over 300,000 views now. Did you look?
I'm not up to date recently, but yeah, it's
Instagram
up there.
Really liked it and showed it to a lot of mountain bikers, and people seem to enjoy it and get all amped up about it. So that's cool. So we're going to talk about that. I'm really excited about that new bike. I've been riding it a lot. We're going to answer a few audience questions if we have time. Those are going to be around the topics of one, suspension, heavier spring rate with compression as opposed to lower spring rate with more compression. Another one is going to be about tire inserts such as Cush Core. And then another one is going to be about, have you ever loved a bike that is quote unquote bad for you, which kind of goes into being comfortable on an old bike. And then we're going to touch on what bikes we're riding personally and where and whatnot. And that's what's going to be on this episode number 78. I remembered it this time. It's in all caps because last time I said the wrong episode. So they put it in all caps for me. So let's do it. So what are we doing for Black Friday and Cyber Monday? Well, typically it's, one of the few times a year that we do a sale on the worldwidecyclery.com website, and that is always awesome. It's always fun to do that and partake in the crazy retail madness that somehow the United States has invented. Is Black Friday's got to be a United States thing, right?
I think it's primarily U.S. type deal. Yeah,
we must have invented that. That seems very American.
The story is end of the year, Black Friday, getting out of the red, creating profit, getting your margins up. That's the Black Friday name. Well, sounds like a Wall Street USA thing.
Could be, yeah, Hallmark style, made up holidays to spend money. Mm-hmm. Sounds very greedy capitalist, but
Yeah, buying stuff for Christmas.
Yeah, anyways, it's fun. This year, we decided to kind of flip it on its head and do something that we've never done before. And rather than doing a sale, we're actually going to do a fundraiser of sorts. The fundraiser is going to be for NICA, the National Interscholastic Cycling Association. That is the nonprofit organization that's been around since 2009 that is making mountain biking an accredited sport in middle schools and high schools all over the U.S., over 30 states, over 25,000 riders. Pretty incredible organization that I really admire because myself, if I didn't get into riding mountain bikes as a kid, then my life would probably be very different. What about you, Jared?
100%.
When did you ride mountain bikes for the first time?
When did I ride mountain bikes for the first time? Probably middle school or so.
Yeah.
Probably like maybe 10 years old or something like that.
Fell in love and the rest is history?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I wish I had something like NICA when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of running cross country.
Yeah, I feel like everybody, so NICA's been around since 2009. It's still not, in every state by any means or every high school, but it's getting there. It's growing really fast as the years go by. And everyone that hears about it is like, man, I wish I had that in high school. Like, did you wish you had that in high school, Liam?
Yeah, I did. Instead, I was building dirt jumps, being more of a delinquent, and I could have been in an organized, getting credit for high school sport.
Yeah.
That led me to where I am today just sooner, but I didn't.
Exactly. So yeah, I admire NICA. It's very well known in the bike industry, but we actually ran a poll, one on YouTube community, one on Instagram. Ended up getting about 9,000 votes between the two of them, and actually about 63% of the people that voted said they'd never heard of NICA, which I thought was surprising. Because yeah, when you live in the bike industry, you just know what NICA is. But so part of the fundraiser that we're doing is not just to raise money, which by the way, the goal is to raise over $10,000, and I'm confident we'll hit that. Hopefully plenty more than $10,000. But it's also about just bringing awareness to what NICA is. If you're in a state and you are in high school or you have kids in high school and you don't have NICA, contact them, figure it out, get it in your school, learn about it, help them out, support them. It's a great organization. So what we're doing is basically every single product that sells on our website, Friday to Monday, $5 will be donated to NICA. Our gift cards are 10% off, and each gift card sold, $5 goes to NICA. The reason behind us discounting gift cards in particular is because our inventory levels, like everyone else in the entire bicycle industry right now, because of the pandemic, it's been a tough year. The supply chain has been pretty trash. So everyone's really operating off of pretty subpar inventory levels at best. A lot of stuff is out of stock and it's hit or miss. And because of that, it makes a lot of sense to discount gift cards, and that way you can hold on to that gift card, support NICA once you purchase it, and then you can use that gift card when what you're waiting for comes back in stock, or until next season when everyone needs to re-up on their bike stuff. So that's what we're doing for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We're intending this podcast to hit in your ears on Black Friday. So you're hearing it. Hop on that computer, buy some things, support NICA, or just don't. Just go to NICA's website and read about what they're doing. You can also do that too, because the idea is that we just get some awareness about what NICA is and what that organization is doing, which is really cool. So aside from that, let's go and do some mountain bike tech stuff. First off, we did a recent video about how to upgrade the fork on your mountain bike, the entire fork. And we broke that out into chapters, and we're going to touch on each chapter real briefly to kind of give you a high-level 101 view of that video. Chapters, Jared?
The chapters are steer tube size, travel, wheel size, offset, axle type, brake mounts, and how much travel air versus coil.
How much travel?
How much should you spend?
How much do you spend?
How much did you spend in air versus coil?
How much should you spend? Yes, like low end coil versus high end, and vice versa.
Yeah,
and
totally.
As well.
Yeah, so to quickly, the video is almost 15 minutes long. It goes over every one of those things. So if you are in need of upgrading your fork and want to upgrade it, we tried to put together a really good resource with that video. And then the blog article that accompanies it has, images and much more text and even more nitty-gritty details. Did you write that, Liam? You did, right?
Yeah, I think I wrote the first one, then I rewrote this one as well. So
yeah, cool. So yeah, let's run through quickly. Steer tube size. What's the 101?
Pretty much as a most common, we have a straight steer, which is 1.1 inch, or a tapered steer, which is 1.1 inch up top, and it tapers larger to 1.5 inches down at the bottom of the fork. So you pretty much need to know what steer tube type you have and match it.
Yep. Yeah, and those are the two most common types. And on modern day, I think it's 2010 is when tapered steers started becoming totally like table stakes on nicer mountain bikes. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
I remember 2009 race season, I started seeing them pop up on brand new bikes.
And then even when I was at a Specialized shop 5.5 years ago or so, they're starting to pop up on $1,500 rock hoppers. So
yeah, because it showed up on higher end stuff and then trickled down like kind of everything does. So tapered steers are, pretty much on any relevantly new mountain bike that's not old. It's got that, and that's not under $1,000 maybe, right? Like bikes under that price point. The only times you might see a straight steer on something rare that's still new would be like a titanium hardtail, or steel hardtail, but even that, it's pretty rare.
If
dirt jump bikes, steel dirt jump bike.
But if they're meant for a suspension fork, they're normally coming with a tapered steer. So double check what you have, look it up, give us a call if you don't know.
Yep. Yeah, that's a huge one. You got to get the right one there. That does kind of correlate to your frame too, right? So like if you're on rare occasion, if you have a straight steer on your bike now and you want to upgrade your fork to a tapered, you can do that sometimes, but not very often. What is it, a 44 mil ID head tube? Like some of those come with inset cups that are straight steer, and then you can put an external cup, make it tapered.
Yeah.
That's headsets. That's we're getting into headsets, and that's like that's a 9-hour podcast on its own. So steer tube size, those are the two most common ones. Make sure you get the right one for your bike. Travel. Jared, do you remember what we said about travel in that video?
I believe you mentioned something about you want to stay around 20 millimeters within the travel your bike was designed for.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Because, I mean, if your bike was engineered for something like 140 and you throw 160 on it, like what are the two things that happen? Head angle, bottom bracket height?
Seat tube angle gets slacker, head tube angle gets slacker, bottom bracket height gets farther away from the ground.
Yeah, lifts up.
Yeah, so
yeah.
Most of the time you'll enjoy the slack head tube and might or might not notice the seat tube angle or the bottom bracket.
Yep. But, modern bikes, they're all pretty dialed in, and the engineers that designed them definitely knew what they were doing, and they decided to put something like a certain travel fork on it for a reason. So we usually don't tell people to change away from that unless you have some specific reasons, like you have a 140 bike and it's got 140 in the back, and you're like, man, I just really wish it was a little higher and a little slacker, and then throwing something like a 150 or 160, it's okay. But don't push it more than 20 millimeters, which usually ends up in the comments being like this hilarious joke. It's like, oh, you finally told every 13-year-old kid that he can't put a Fox 40 on his dirt jump bike. Actually, when we were talking about that, we showed an image of Logan Mullally, a good friend of ours and former employee. He had an Intense, is it an M9? What is that?
The newest one.
Yeah, like their
M9,
newest
I think,
downhill bike. I actually asked him to take his Fox 40 and slide the stanchions down to the bottom crown and completely remove the top crown and then clamp it all together. I mean, obviously this was a total joke. It's very confusing. A lot of people commented and saw that and were like, what? It looks hilarious.
It looks like a chopper
awesome.
bike.
It looks like a chopper
for
bike.
sure.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
We posted on Instagram a while ago and explained it a little bit more. And I mean, we really wanted it just for this video, and it ended up looking pretty funny.
Travel, stay within 20.
Yep.
Maybe even modern bike, stay within 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and then
a lot like a tendency for people is like they're upgrading the fork and they're like, oh, well, I'm upgrading my fork, I should get more travel, right? But like
it's not necessarily true.
Exactly. Yeah.
Upgrades about weight, performance,
Exactly.
adjustments. Yeah. Much more so than just travel.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Next up is wheel size. That's a pretty easy one on Jared.
It is. Yeah. You typically want
tell them about it.
You typically want to get the wheel size that your bike already has.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that one's pretty simple. The only confusing thing there is a lot of forks now in the title of them will say like 27.5 plus /29, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a 27.5 plus, you need that fork.
Right.
But if you have a regular 27.5, you just need the fork that only says 27.5.
Right.
Does not contain the plus sign.
Although these new forks, like the redesigned arch on the 38 and 36, Liam, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can accommodate the plus size tires now, or pretty close to it.
27.
So like a
27
27.5.
fork accommodates a 27 plus size tire.
I think it's pretty close now.
I think so.
I guess it depends on how big a plus we're talking.
Yeah.
2.6
Yeah.
is probably fine, but 2.8 might be pushing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're
2.8
getting pretty
Schwalbe
close,
would rub, and a 2.8 Maxxis would have an inch of clearance.
Yeah.
That was a joke about the inconsistency of the measurements across different tire brands.
Yeah.
If you didn't catch it, because that again could be a different podcast. Wheel size. That one's pretty simple. That's things like steer tube, travel, wheel size, typically even offset and axle type. Those are all going to be generally in the title of the fork when you're buying the thing. So like if you're looking and researching online, like it will say all of those specs right in the title because they're so vital to get right that you know that those are important. So you can't really mix that one up. The next thing is offset, which sometimes pops up in the title. We made a video about offset. It is still confusing, but it's getting less confusing because people are starting to just settle on the newer offsets. Liam, you are well versed in offset, so Give us a rundown.
Offset is how far out your front wheel mounts from the parallel line of your steer tube of your frame to where the same parallel line of where your axle mounts. Typically, it's about 50-ish millimeters. Gary Fisher moved that to 51 mil, kind of when 29ers got popular. And that's kind of where it sat for, 10 years of 29ers?
10 or 15 years of like 29ers were like that, yep.
And then what really pushed it was Transition's SPG geometry that really pushed kind of the whole package of longer reach, slacker head tube angle, reduced fork offset, and steeper seat tube angles that kind of accommodated for a whole new riding style that's like now adapted as a modern long, low slack. But offset, it's how far out your fork mounts from the plane of your steer tube. Typically, you just match what you have as with the other things. If you do have a relatively newer, I'd say maybe 2016, 2017 and newer, you might go from 51 mil offset to reduced offset. Also, forks like the new RockShox Zeb and RockShox Sid Ultimate, the 120 mil, are only offered in the 44 offset. So you don't really have a choice if you want that fork.
Yep.
But if you do, pretty much just stick to what your bike came with.
Yeah, that's usually what I say. If you can figure out what your bike came with,
It's typically on the geometry chart, right? If you look up your bike.
Yeah.
Typically.
Offset or a couple other terms for it.
Yeah, I've been out of that game for a while, but Jared, you probably are more frequently dealing with people who are trying to purchase various components and upgrades and parts for their bikes, trying to figure out what size their existing bike has, and they don't know, so they're referring to the bike brand's website, and is there any information there? Because I remember when I did a lot more customer support and talked to people all day upgrading their bikes, it was a disaster. Like, no matter what bike you had, you probably had a 9 out of 10 chance they're like, you couldn't figure out any of the information on it. Maybe you could figure out the geo, but you couldn't figure out like very much. You couldn't figure out like the rear axle size. Why?
That's just like a crapshoot. But I mean, I would say offset is like definitely more prevalent in geometry charts nowadays, because I think a lot more people are looking for that. For sure.
Offset or fork rake. You might find out under fork rake on your geo chart.
Yeah, that's true.
And then that leads into axle size, Jared.
There you go.
Axle type.
Type. What are we talking about? We're talking about boost, non-boost,
well,
quick release.
Just getting the right one so that your hub works.
Getting the right one.
So you can put your front wheel on your new fork and it actually works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Kind of just, again, getting what your bike was designed for, unless you are willing and able to get a new front wheel for your bike.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there's the rare chance where you have a 15 mil by 100 front axle and the fork you want is only available in 15 by 110 or boost spacing, and you can get a boost adapter so you can get that nice shiny updated new fork and still use your front wheel.
Totally.
Yeah, but what you meant by the boost adapter is like the actual end caps for the hub.
No, Problem Solvers just make some 5 mil spacers you put on either side and a 5 mil disc.
Like a spacer for your
disc rotor. Disc with longer rotor bolts. So
so you don't actually have to get hub adapters.
No, it doesn't matter on your hub for the Problem Solvers one. So I would suggest getting hub adapters if you have like a Stans hub or DT Swiss hub or
because that's like kind of more traditional, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the more proper way to do it, is like actually convert your hub to the correct size, with their branded hub adapters,
Or I think MRP makes a couple for
the better boost end cap or something like that,
But yeah, Problem Solvers does make one that's kind of universal, so
nice.
Little Band-Aid while you purchase a new wheel set or save up for one, so.
Yeah, it seems like, in my experience, people that are upgrading their fork, they're most of the time figure all this stuff out. Takes a little bit, communicate with us a bit, or, our staff, and figuring out what they need, what sizes, all that. On the rare occasion, you find people who are in a situation where it's like, well, I have this 26-inch bike and the fork is terrible and I really need a new fork, but I'm going to be getting a 27.5 bike next year. And so I'm just going to buy a 27.5 fork for my 26 bike and leave the 26 wheel on there. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll just buy a 27.5 front wheel and make it a mullet bike for a year until I get the 27.5 bike next year. And then I'm going to move this fork and wheel over to that bike. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Get it all the time. People are just like, well, I just want to upgrade this bike. And like, yeah, I've seen 27.5 bikes. Seems like a cool idea. I want to make my bike like that.
Yeah. So that's where it's getting a little confusing and challenging. But yeah, we did mention the video too, and this actually got brought up, I think, during steer tubes, right? I mean, in steer tubes, I was talking about threaded steer tubes, which, man, those haven't been around since like 2002. So those are the kind of things, or just 1 inch, right? 1 inch threaded, and then
that was before I was
inch
born,
and an
maybe.
eighth threaded. Yeah, they're old, but people still have bikes with that they ride, and you know, it's like, well, if your bike has that, it is so old, it's not worth upgrading the fork. Like, just ride it as is, be happy with it, and you know, get your eye on some new bikes. Because yeah, there's just no point in putting like fresh, new, modern components on a really old bike with a bunch of outdated, quote unquote, standards, as they call them in the bike industry. Brake mounts. This one's fairly simple, right? I mean, if you're talking modern day bikes, they're all disc brake. For the most part, they're now all post mounts. I haven't seen an IS fork adapter in like 5 years, maybe.
IS fork is pretty rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be common though. When disc brakes first came out, that's all there was.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I think my commuter bike still has IS disc mounts on it.
Yeah, we showed that in the video for reference. But yeah, most modern bikes are going to use a post mount, which makes more sense, and then the caliper just mounts directly to the fork, depending on the rotor size and depending on if it's a post mount 160, 180, or 200. Which, if it's a post mount 180, that means a 180 rotor works on there with no adapter. Like, the caliper just mounts right on there. There you go. If you're trying to use a post mount 180 with a 200 rotor, then you need the adapter. Like, what? Just a 20 mil adapter.
Yep.
Try not to mix rotors, adapters, and calipers, different brands. So if you got Shimano brakes, use Shimano adapters and Shimano rotors. And if you got SRAM brakes, use SRAM rotors and SRAM adapters, and there you go. I don't know why people always want to mix those up, but it's just, you run into the weirdest problems when you do that. So try to always just keep the brands the same for those three things, and that helps. So yeah, brake mounts, all that's covered in the video with more pictures and stuff too. Let's see, how much, question mark, which is like how much money, and then air versus coil. So that's a total matter of opinion when it comes to how much money you want to spend on your new fork, what you have on there now.
And sometimes you're limited on how much you can spend too, right? Depending on what your above categories matches your bikes, right? If you have a straight steer fork at 120 mil travel on a 26 or 27.5 wheel, with a quick release axle, you're going to kind of be topped out at like a $350 price point for a fork.
Yeah,
so you can't really spend more. Now, if you're upgrading a bike that's, you know, maybe
totally modern tapered steer.
Maybe 6 years old, 7 years old, but it has a tapered steer, through axle, 29 front wheel. You could spend $1,000, but is it worth spending $1,000? It's up to you, really.
Yeah, sky's the limit. I think when it comes to forks, you probably hit diminishing returns at, like, would be the Fox Performance Elite level, which is in the same exact internals and everything as the factory stuff. The only difference is Kashima, which Jared, do you love Kashima or what? He's got a huge smile on his face when I said Kashima.
Who doesn't love Kashima? I mean, come on.
I mean, how much can you spend? Man, there's a million videos talking about the various features, but yeah, once you kind of get above that like $750 level, you're not really gaining too much more performance. Maybe just some adjustments that may or may not be relevant to your riding style. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. And there are a couple forks that maybe fit that model but aren't super high end but give you great performance. Like, first thing that comes to mind is a Marzocchi. Marzocchi, you can get pretty high end performance at a, you know, slightly cheaper price point.
And relatively upgradable too, right? Like, you could get a $700 fork and upgrade it to be just like $1,000 fork, and you know.
Yep, true. All right, well, cool. There you go. I mean, I guess the last quick thing: air versus coil. Oh boy, just go to YouTube and watch a bunch of videos. That's hard. I don't even know how to talk about it anymore, because it's, you know, air springs have come such a long way that they've gotten so supple, so progressive, so tunable. It's really hard to recommend a coil, but then again, some people still swear by how supple coils are, and they sometimes like how they feel. And there's like coil hybrids, and then things like the Push ACS3, right, which is like still gives you the ability to change the progressivity of the fork, but still retain the coil feel. Oh man, you're getting really into the nerdy side of things. So refer to YouTube and all else. It's how to upgrade your fork. Let's now discuss upcoming videos. SRAM Eagle Access install. That was just like a POV video for you, right, Liam?
Yep. Yeah, I just went through with the GoPro and kind of went through the steps on installing a full Access drivetrain with a crank, derailleur, cassette, shifter, chain, how to set it up, how to pair the electronics, set the limits on your derailleur and your B tension.
And how did the angles come out and the views?
I had 2 GoPros on my chest and on my head, as well as a still, and went back with another still camera to get up close angles.
Awesome. Because we
Should be covered.
Okay, because we did this video before and people loved it. And I think a lot of people upgraded Access and really enjoyed it. And it was helpful and informative. And a lot of people just wanted to watch it because it's SRAM Access and it's a beautiful piece of electronic drivetrain. But a lot of people commented to the tune of like several dozen people. Like, what was it? Like the GoPro was a little too low. So sometimes your hands were out of the frame or something.
Yeah, I also think that was a GoPro 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So now we're on an 8 or 9, and we have this thing called Super View.
Yeah. We're getting fancy over here.
And it makes
it's a learning curve, but
makes that view much better. So
yeah. So there you go. We redid the video because of the comments and because we know it's a useful video and we had to make it better. So it's a never-ending task of constantly making all the media we produce better. And then quickly another video we have coming out in the next couple weeks is how to make your bike better, which I think it was like how to upgrade your bike. I don't remember what the title of that was, right? How to upgrade your bike. Yeah, the idea there was, upgrading your bike's really fun. You could change all sorts of various different things, and it is so situational depending on obviously your budget and then what bike you have and what's currently on it. And, upgrading a $2,000 mountain bike versus a bike that, came off the showroom floor at $7,500 is just totally different. So we tried to break that down, and we tried to break out the most impactful and the most popular upgrades, and then how that kind of breaks into the different categories and price points of bikes. So we did our best to break it down into segments that hopefully will be helpful and valuable and probably much more, if you're a little bit more novice, just getting into the sport, just experimenting with various different upgrades and kind of in that decision paralysis of like, what do I upgrade next? Because it's so fun and I want to change it. Like you talk to people that do that, right?
All the time.
Yeah. And they're just like, I got money burning a hole in my pocket. I want to make this bike better.
Exactly. It all depends on what's on there right now.
Yeah. Because it's addicting. Like you do something like change to some really nice tires and your just mind is blown. Like a change of ride experience puts a huge smile on your face. You do something like upgrading your rear shock or your fork or both at the same time, and it's like a whole new bike. So it gets addicting. So we tried to break down what to upgrade, when to upgrade it, various different things. So hopefully it helps. I think the more novice riders will benefit from it. If you're really far down the path of a bike nerd, then you probably already know and understand the various different upgrades and which ones work better and whatnot. And now real quickly, I don't think we should spend too much time on this because the next topic was wet weather and colder temperature tips from 3 kids who grew up and still live in Southern California. We have ridden in wet weather. I lived in Pennsylvania for a year and raced a whole season out there in just muck, mud, and then also even rode bikes on a patch of ice and like tried turning and fell on my face. And there's a tip: if you're actually riding on a patch of ice, do not turn, or just don't even ride on it. Just avoid it at all costs. It hurts really bad. It's hard to ride on.
Yep. And then it does occasionally drop below the perfect 75 degrees in SoCal. Yeah, especially in the mountains. So
yeah,
it's true.
That was like, we made one video with like cold weather riding gear a couple years ago, and we'd put like some pretty lightweight gear, and people are just like, that might work in your 55 degree quote unquote cold weather, you Cali boy. And I was like, okay, well, that's fair. That's okay. Yeah.
Very fair.
I don't know. I mean, I don't have a huge amount of tips on my end.
Jared does spend time in Lake Arrowhead.
It's true.
Yeah. What do you do differently out there other than just wear more functional cold weather clothes?
Well, I would say layering is one of my biggest tips. At least for down here and up there, because it typically will start out with a jacket and like a long sleeve or something like that. And maybe you want to shed one of the layers and then you want to have something underneath that still works. So that's nice. Also, like warmer gloves is huge up there. Like riding when it's like 30 something degrees, like you definitely want warmer gloves because if you can't feel your brake levers and your shifter, like that's no fun.
Another tip on gloves that actually I learned from riding moto in the desert when it was like over New Year's when it's snowing. Is wearing like a rubber glove underneath your riding glove, and it pretty much works as a windbreaker and blocks out all of your wind. And then you have your riding glove on top of that still has texture.
Didn't end up too sweaty doing that?
I mean,
it kind of depends on the
temperature. It does, but I mean, if you're in 30 or under temps, it is what it is. Because
that's kind of like a cheat, right? Instead of wearing like a thicker, warmer, more like ski style glove, then you can just do that like regular pair of gloves with the like surgical gloves underneath.
Yeah, like the 100% brisker. It's not an extremely cold glove.
Probably goes down to like 45 degrees.
Yeah, I'd say if you're like
40
under 50s to like freezing, it's a good glove.
Yeah.
And then you throw a rubber glove under that and you might get a couple more degrees out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Hand Up actually is making some pretty nice cold weather stuff, and they actually sent a couple pairs over this way for us to test out, which I haven't tested out yet because it's not cold here. But they look really nice. I put them on, and they had kind of a similar idea to the 100% Brisker in the sense that like the palm and like the fingers, what you're touching things with, right, is still fairly thin, and then the more cushioning and wind blocking stuff is on the top, so it doesn't feel like you're wearing a snowboard glove and you can't feel your shifter, or your dropper post lever, or your brake lever, whatever. So I don't know, that's cool. I mean, those used to not even exist, right? Like 100% Briskers and the Hand Up ones, and probably a few other brands make some good ones that didn't exist. It was either just like a normal glove or you wore a ski glove and it was way too thick. So yeah, good gloves, that makes a huge difference.
Good gloves.
I don't know, I put some of those shoe covers on one time when I was riding in Pennsylvania and it was really cold. Those seemed to work, made my feet sweaty, but I could also feel my toes, which was nice. So those were
good. Cycling
cool.
Caps, warm caps, or
under the helmet, true.
Neck
gaiters.
Mm-hmm.
A baklava or a balaclava?
Balaclava.
I'm not attempting that.
Baklava and a balaclava. They're two totally different things.
Greek dessert?
One of them is a Greek dessert, and one of them is a thing to wear over your face to keep warm. 45 North actually is a pretty impressive brand when it comes to really technical, high-end, high-quality cold weather riding gear. They make all sorts of fancy boots, gloves, baklavas. They make tons of stuff
for your hands that go over the bars, right?
Bar mitts,
pogies.
Mm-hmm. Aren't those called pogies? Or bar mitts or something like that.
I do not live in Minnesota.
That's like really hardcore. So 45 North is, born and bred from Minnesota. So they know how to ride bikes in the snow and cold weather. So if you're looking for some really high-end gear, definitely Google that brand and look at their selection. They make some very, very impressive stuff when it comes to like serious cold weather, like below freezing, and still trying to ride your bike, which is good.
Good for you.
Yeah, and if you're doing that, props. I would probably just hang up the bike and go snowboarding, which I think a lot of people do. But
now they're on Zwift.
Yeah, or Zwift, right? Or
Yeah.
Peloton. Yeah, true. Those are good wintertime things. A couple new products, or a few new products and brands that we've seen come out. P&W Loam Dropper. Liam, what is it?
It is a newest dropper offering from P&W. Kind of taking over the spot of their previous Bachelor post. So the Loam dropper is now their highest level post. Retails for $199. The really cool visual thing about this dropper post that sets it apart from any other dropper post is you can actually change out the seal collar head silicone color. So it comes with a black one, but they have like 8 different colors, I believe. Blue, desert dune, which is like tan, gray, green, orange, purple, red, teal, to choose from. So you can match.
Little rubber collar sits really flush in there.
So it sits on the seal head. Feature. Yeah, the bottom of the post sticks out just above your frame, and it just so happens to match their Loam lever and their Loam grips. So you have a full Loam line, and now you can match all your P&W products. It does have an adjustable air cartridge. They were able to shorten the insertion length and the overall length on the post.
Nice.
Something you see pretty common. It's a 30.9, 31.6, and 34.9 diameters in a 125, 150, 170, and 200 mil travel. And each post is shimmable down by 5 millimeters, meaning, and that's toolless
5 millimeter
adjustment.
increments.
In 5 millimeter increments. So you could have a 200 mil dropper post, but you can only really fit 190 or 185 mil, and you can make that happen just by pulling up the seal head collar, adjusting a little shim in there, sliding it back down, and now you can have the most drop possible on your bike. So pretty cool. They have that also on the Rainier V3 post. So
yeah. Feature rich. Yeah, that's cool. I like PNW. I'm a fan of the brand, and the people that own it. Aaron and Emily are just really nice, good humans and people that I like. And I like people in the bike industry that are cool. They actually have a product too. They're handlebars, right? There's a range bar, correct? Is that the name of it?
Yeah,
that's the
the
one
range
that,
bar.
and is it 5% of each bar sold goes to NICA?
5% or $5? Let's double check.
Something like that. Yeah, but that's another brand that's, supporting NICA, the same one that we're doing the fundraiser with over the next few days here. So yeah, anyways, just a plug there because I like really the people behind PNW. I don't know. In my eyes these days, the longer I'm in the bike industry, the more I care about the people behind the brands and the ethics and the way they treat, customers and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so PNW gets my vote there.
5%.
5%.
Yep.
It is the range bar, right?
Yep. Range bar 5% goes to NICA.
Nice. All right, sweet. Next up, OneUp EDC Lite. OneUp components.
Yeah. So the EDC tool's been super popular for a couple of years now, storing multi-tool and some accessories in your steer tube, but you used to have to thread your steer tube first, then OneUp made a stem that made it so you did not have to thread your steer tube. You just use their stem and their headset tightening unit. And now the EDC Lite doesn't do any of that. You still use your Forks star nut. You don't need any extra tools. It comes with a longer, basically threaded nut that you pound down your star nut. So you have room to fit your EDC Lite above your star nut. I actually saw Jesse Melamed install it while riding his gravel bike on a fire road. He took his headset cap off, pounded down the star nut, put the EDC Lite on, and tightened it.
It's impressive.
That is ridiculous.
I would not suggest installing yours like that. He is a paid professional.
Yeah, good disclaimer. Legal team, disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
But yeah, it's a cool tool. It holds the EDC OneUp tool, which has like a 2.5, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 millimeter Allens, a T25 Torx, and a flathead screwdriver. And I believe you can still remove a master link or a quick link with the multi-tool if you kind of position it right. I think there's a video on how to do that. So pretty cool tool.
Yeah,
Storage on your bike.
sweet. Yeah, OneUp makes a lot of really cool, high-end, fancy products that are one-upping other things. It's funny that's their name because they're like beholden to that, but so far they're fine. They're
staying true.
literally
Yeah.
doing it. Like everything they make is
Yeah.
legitimately better than the other stuff that's out there.
You kind of have to.
Yeah, but that's some pressure. That's some
Yep.
pressure with that name.
The next
But
stem,
I believe in them.
or next product, I gave it away.
Does that need to get cut out of the podcast? I don't know. Tell me. Okay, the next brand we're going to talk about here, Title MTB. I just wanted to bring up Title MTB because it's a newer brand for us to be carrying and selling, and it is a component brand. They are making wheels, seat posts, mostly bars and stems, I think, are like the main things that we're carrying. It's run by Brett Reeder and crew. So if you don't know who Brett Reeder is, I have his stats right here. He's a Red Bull Rampage champion, 7-time Crankworks champion, 4-time slopestyle world champion, and an X Games gold medalist. So he is quite the decorated mountain biker. Just go watch videos of him. He's unbelievably good at riding a bike, like one of the best people in the world, hands down. But they're making their designs look incredible, like the branding, the logos, Yeah, everything's just super nice. And it's also, well, it was in stock. It already sold out, but we're getting more of it. It's one of the few like nice high-end stem and bar brands that have good stock right now, which is hard to come by these days. So Title MTB, well, it's a newer brand worth checking out for sure. What else we got? NV Alloy M6/M7. Well, M6 and the M7 stem. It's like a first alloy stem from NV, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. M6 is the
31.8 lighter trail and is following in their product line. M6 is like trail.
Yeah.
M7 is like enduro, so it's 35.0 clamp,
Got it.
which aligns with their bars.
Sweet. Yeah. Fully machined stem. Looks really nice. Definitely.
Actually, it is forged then machined.
Oh.
Ooh.
Forged then machined. Okay. Oh yeah, you're right. Now that I think about it, I remember they had that really fancy photo on their website of all that whole manufacturing process.
Yeah, it's still a little expensive, on the more expensive side for alloy stem, but it's about $100 cheaper than the carbon stem. So
What is the price?
I think it's 120, 125. So I think their carbon stems are like
Pretty respectable though for the weight and the looks and the quality of that thing.
No, it looks really good. There's some cool features. I'd say it's on par with price.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Nice. Cool. Yeah, real quick, let's go over my new Ranger. So I built up a Revel Ranger. I don't actually build any of my bikes. Liam does because he's an incredible mechanic, and it's better he does that than me. And one of the things him and I were brainstorming on was the drivetrain, because a Ranger is a downcountry bike. So it's 115 mil travel in the back, 120 in the front, 29-inch wheels. Pretty lightweight. I think mine's just like 26.9, right? 26 pounds, 9 ounces, what I weighed it at, with pedals and water bottle cage. So that's all kitted out. And with 2.4 tires front and rear. So I didn't really feel it necessary to have the full 10 to 52 tooth range on the Eagle cassette. But ever since that gold Eagle cassette came out, I really wanted one. But I didn't want the 52 tooth cog. So Liam chopped it off with a Dremel.
Yep.
And we put it on the interwebs, and people freaked out. Because I think the problem was we didn't really put in the caption what the hell was going on. So a lot of people,
for good reason.
Yeah, that probably added to it being just very confusing. So that's why I had to go on there and like comment and put a pinned comment of what actually happened and what was going on. We did not ruin the cassette. We just chopped off that large cog to save weight, because I'm a weight weenie and I wanted to make the bike light. And then not only did it save weight, then it allowed us to attach an 11-speed derailleur cage to the derailleur, which is shorter, which is also lighter and has more clearance. So now I got an 11-speed drivetrain with a gold cassette, and I wanted the gold one because a lot of people were like, why don't you just run an 11-speed drivetrain? Well, because one, I wanted it to be Ceram Eagle, and I wanted it to be gold, but I wanted it to be 11-speed. And this was the only possible way to make this happen. So we didn't ruin the cassette. I'm still using it. I'm going to use it for its whole life. What did we do with the cog? Did we throw it into the wall like a Ninja Star?
I think I held on to it for like a day, and then I just cleaned it up, and it made its way to the trash can. So I should have maybe saved it.
A few people asked to have that. Yeah. We should have sold that.
Yeah, it was to save weight. You didn't need the range. And for everyone who commented, why didn't we just unpin the whole cassette backing piece? Because it's a machine steel 11 cogs, which are all the gold ones. And then the largest cog is actually a pinned on alloy cog. Well, you need the bottom part of that alloy cog to make contact with your XD free hub body, so it actually stays on the bike. So we had to keep that whole cog on in order to use the cassette and make it usable. Yeah. So I think in total we saved about 100 grams between the derailleur cage and
which is almost a quarter pound. Like, that's a decent amount of weight.
Or a Royale with cheese.
What did you just say?
A Royale with cheese.
It's from Pulp Fiction. A quarter pounder in French.
Oh, okay.
In France.
Gotcha. Yep. I didn't see that one. That one went over my head. But it was still funny because it was cheese.
Hopefully some people get it.
Yeah, some people will get it. A lot of people have seen Pulp Fiction. I'm probably in the minority there, people who haven't seen that. But yeah, I mean, it looks amazing now. I like it. I like that it's lighter, and I don't know.
It's custom.
Yeah, it's fun. I like just doing unique things, and that one was a little weird and off the wall, but in the scheme of things, it wasn't horribly hard. Like, you just cut the cog off and then threw a different cage on, and now it looks sweet. Shaved some weight, got an 11-speed Eagle drivetrain. We just drove in the low screw on the derailleur so that the shifter just doesn't have all the same clicks. It just is missing one click, basically. So that's how that works if you're getting really nerdy and thinking about that. But yeah, works good. I've been having so much fun on that bike. I'm utterly impressed with the RockShox SID suspension, the new stuff, and how supple it is. It just feels amazing. Like, for a bike like that, I've never had a bike with that short of travel that's that light and efficient and fast that still just feels capable and doesn't beat you up. So downcountry bikes are coming a long way across all the brands, and the suspension's a big part of that.
So can I ask you one question on that bike?
Yep.
What is your favorite part on it? And if you could change anything about it, what would you change? That's 2 questions.
I mean, those questions are ridiculous.
What's your favorite part? What's your favorite part?
My favorite part is the gold cassette. That's 11-speed because I'm the only person that has that.
Okay. If you could change anything, what would it be? Because in your situation, it might not be necessarily something that's in production, but maybe something you want that you don't have.
I would maybe change we did both hubs gold. I would maybe change the hub and spoke anodized combination that I did.
So just colors, no actual physical part change.
I don't think so. I wish Industry 9 made a 28.5 millimeter wide alloy rim that was the same weight as the one with the 27 mil internal width. That doesn't exist, and I want that.
You want an additional 1.5 millimeter inner rim?
Yeah, I do. But it's got to be the same weight and the same strength.
Is there a carbon variety that you can explore?
I don't know. Well, carbon rims.
Don't they make the 280? Isn't that their carbon one? It's like 1 millimeter wider or something.
Why didn't I get that, Liam? They don't make it in 24 hole, huh? So it ends up being heavier. There's some reason.
You didn't express this desire. That's why.
Yeah.
You didn't think about it until he asked you.
You actually ordered the rims, and I built the bike around the rims or around the wheels.
Yeah.
That's how this one worked.
Okay, well, who knows?
We're in the weeds.
We're in the weeds. Get out of the weeds. Let's answer quickly a few audience questions, and then we'll close it out. So, let's see. The first one we have here: suspension. What are your thoughts on running a slightly heavier spring rate with the compression open as opposed to a lower spring rate with more compression damping? Cheers, Phil McCracken. I wonder if that's really Phil's last name, McCracken. That's a cool last name. Anyways, Liam, answer that in 30 seconds.
So this is referring to a coil suspension by spring rate. If it was air, it would be air pressure. But to answer the question, I suggest going with a heavier spring rate or a little more air pressure with compression wide open.
I agree.
Being that dialing in your compression is kind of like choking off your power to your car. You're forcing oil to go through smaller circuits or more tightly squeezed shim stacks, and therefore increasing the wear on your fork and could make it need a rebuild sooner. Also, I think it feels just a little bit better being a little bit more wide open and just controlling your spring rate to what kind of fits your weight.
Yeah. You're just getting like the feel of the damper that was intended rather than like the compressioned out
And then
version.
if you're, that's kind of how you have it set up for most trails. Say you go to a bike park, you have the room to dial in some compression clicks.
Yep.
Which is usually what I do. I go ride some more jumps. I add some compression clicks. Yeah. I don't really change my pressure, really.
Yep. Agreed. Jared, do you
I would have to agree. I pretty much run my compression wide open as well, or whatever Liam tells me to do. That's usually the best way to go.
Yeah, we get to cheat because we just have so many people that are so knowledgeable about bike stuff that we can just ping ideas around and get advice really quickly. All right, so this gentleman asks Josh. So he says, hi, I heard Jeff and Liam talking about tires on the Revel Rangers y'all are building up, and I was curious if either of you run tube inserts such as Cush Core. My answer to that, which you can probably guess now of how much a weight weenie I am about cutting the whole cog off the cassette, no way, absolutely not. I just I don't know. I run alloy rims. I occasionally ding them. But on a more like downcountry style bike like that, I'm running a decent bit of PSI to stay sort of efficient. And I don't know, I'm just not riding it on like brutally rocky, bumpy trails. But I guess my thought would be like, if I'm riding that bike on trails and I'm dinging the rims all the time, then I should probably just ride a longer travel bike. Or then maybe I would put cush core in it, but I'm just not doing that. So I just don't ding the rims often. So therefore not going to run cush core and deal with the weight penalty or the installation hassle. But Liam, you definitely do run cush core, but probably not on your Ranger, right?
Not like consistently. Cush core is more of a thing. I try to not run the insert for most riding and just choose tire casing for my riding. So on the downcountry Ranger, I run just EXO tires. But say I am taking that bike somewhere, maybe like a big backcountry ride or on a trip, I might throw a cush core XC in the rear just to kind of up the dirtability and kind of not get a flat tire miles away from my car. I'm a big tire nerd and weight nerd, and sometimes I'll run like a lighter casing rear tire, like an Ardent or an Icon, throw a cush core XC in it, just to kind of get faster rolling speed, but the weight kind of comes out to be the same as say like an Aggressor or DHR.
Yeah.
But not all the time. It's kind of more of a situational thing when I run tire inserts. Jared, do you run them?
I have never actually experienced the tire inserts. I typically would just go up to a thicker casing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like installation wise too, cush core is not the easiest to install.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
The funniest is when you do get a big slash and you have to put a tube in. How do you get that cush core down the mountain?
Oh,
Wrap it around your waist.
You
like a
figure
ninja
eight it around your shoulders, and now you have a cush core backpack going
covered
down.
in sealant.
Yeah, covered in sealant over your nice $100 jersey.
oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen.
So, not all the time.
There you go. Yeah, cush core it's certainly popular, but I think it's more popular on like the enduro style scene of things, and not as much on the downcountry scene.
If I was racing enduro or downhill, I'd absolutely be running one.
Okay, yeah, that's important to note.
Yeah,
just for reliability
for race day. Yeah, because I mean, say you flat in the middle of a stage, you can kind of run it out on one of those, and not have to like stop. So.
Yep.
Yeah. If I was racing, maybe whenever I've thought about doing it when I go to race Downingville, running a lighter weight tire like an Icon or Ardent Race or a Recon now, with a XC cush core, kind of for that race day situation.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
it's good advice right there. Last question. Have you ever loved a bike that is bad for you? So this question comes from Michael Friedel. He kind of goes on to explain that he's got a 1996 hardtail that he absolutely loves, even though he kind of knows his riding position is cramped and it's, the reach is too short, BB's too high, etc. But, kind of at the end of the day, he just says he loves it, feels comfortable on it. And so my thought on that is, I think you get used to anything, right? As humans, you just adapt and get used to things, and bikes are no different. When you ride a certain bike, you totally get used to it and feel really comfortable on it. And if you only ride that bike and you ride it, the longer you ride that only one bike, like the more you're going to adapt to it and the more weird a different bike is going to feel. So yes, you can fall in love with an old bike because you're so comfortable on it. Because at the end of the day, what you feel comfortable on and you're used to, you can kind of predict how it's going to react, right? Like that's a big part of how bikes work, is like you can predict, oh, I'm going to hit this and go over the bars, or oh, I'm not, or I know when the traction's going to break free, or I know, if my crank's going to hit this rock as I'm pedaling up through this technical section. Like once you really learn the thing and it kind of becomes one with your body, you get comfortable on it, and then you feel good on it. And when you feel good, you ride good, and everything goes great. But if you were to swap off the 1996 hardtail, it's going to feel awkward at first. And just like any new bike is, you're going to go through that sort of, I call it like the squid phase. Like when I change bikes, I just feel sort of awkward and uncomfortable on it for, I don't know, maybe a couple hours worth of seat time until it starts feeling comfortable. And then, 5-10 hours in, I feel really good and I'm like back to it and got used to it. So I don't know. You have to go through that awkward phase to adapt to new bikes. It's just part of the process. And that awkward phase is longer and harder to deal with and put up with the longer you've been riding your old bike and how different it is versus the new bike. So I don't know. Is that similar take that you have?
Yeah.
Did I nail that answer or what?
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, I think you need to have fun on your bike and whatever bike that is.
That's the whole point of riding mountain bikes.
Ride that,
fun.
Can you have more fun on a newer bike? Maybe. But some people really love riding rigid single speeds.
Yeah.
And that's what
at
they
the end of the day,
fun
like
on,
you're just having fun, right? So if you're comfortable, just keep riding it.
If you are wanting to upgrade, but you're like finding yourself every time you demo a bike or ride a newer bike, you just feel uncomfortable, you just gotta give it time.
Yeah.
I mean, the Geo's evolved for a reason.
Got to get used to it. Go through that awkward phase.
Yep. Yeah. You could go mid-modern too if you're, in that situation, want to step and, dropper posts and wide bars and good tires make a huge difference and you can still be on a hardtail. So.
Yep. Jared?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I would say yes, I have had a bike that I loved that was bad for me. Well, maybe not bad for me, but it was probably my Y Cycles R Plus gravel bike. Like I loved riding it. But every time I finished riding it, I felt like I finished like an MMA fight. Like my neck was killing me, my whole body.
But that would be any gravel bike at all because that was the only drop bar bike you've had ever?
Well, no, I've had like road bikes.
Okay.
But probably, the bike I rode the most that was like that kind of style drop bar bike. But yeah, just like, oh man, I just could never get over like having my neck just like in that crazy contorted position. And
this is the same thing every mountain biker says about any drop bar bike. My neck is in this contorted position and like blah blah blah.
No way, I love that bike. Liam, you have one, right? Yeah, I love that. It's an awesome bike, like probably the coolest gravel bike. But
it's hard. But I bet you if you kept riding the drop bar bike, it would eventually like adapt to you and you'd feel good on it.
Right.
So
exactly,
you didn't give it long enough time.
Probably not.
Which to me, I would never either. I just refuse to ride drop bar bikes. I can't do it because I feel how you feel, and I'm just like, nope, not doing it. Like just put flat bars on.
And then you get home from the ride and you're just like, hand me everything. Just a sandwich and a beer.
Jeff's way of riding gravel is not what the term gravel usually entails.
That's true.
You are more of an adventurer on a flat bar skinny tire bike.
Yeah. We're going to make a YouTube video about my quote unquote gravel bike, which is pretty much just a rigid mountain bike at that point.
Skinny tire, full rigid.
Yeah, I mean, there's no definition of like what a gravel bike has to be or what it has to be ridden on. And, I kind of, prefer to ride mine a little bit more like a mountain bike, even though it's still rigid and has 700 by 42C tires.
And I ride mine more like a road bike where I'm not near cars.
Yeah.
So I
that makes sense.
Yeah, I choose long fire roads and, link up
more
different
common
sections.
For
yeah, it's
what
definitely more
is,
common.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do go ride Jeff. You just have to make sure you bring lots of water, food, snacks, long sleeves, pants, toilet paper because you're out there all day. First aid's not a bad idea. I've never brought that, Jared, but I should.
Yeah, I like to plan adventurous gravel rides on trails that I don't know, and I find it fun to like map this whole loop out and not even look at the elevation graph at all. So like and most of like sometimes they're hiking trails and I don't know, it's just more excitement. You're gonna be like when we I don't even remember the name of that trail we rode up or didn't ride up. We hiked our bikes on our back up because it was so steep
from PCH.
Yeah. It looked rad and I was like, oh yeah, we'll just cut up this way and then we'll cut through into this canyon and then we get there and I was like, you're not climbing this. You're like basically have your fingertips on the ground as you're walking up it with your bike on your back.
To encompass Jeff's gravel rides, it's a hike I brought my bike on.
Yeah, only sometimes.
Exciting in that you might die from exhaustion and heat stroke.
I don't know. To me, that's fun.
I've always made it back.
Yeah. Liam's fine
so far.
Zach was the only one who like he was pissed at that one point when I took him on one of those rides. I thought I was like, our friendship might be over.
I'm never talking to you again.
I was like, literally, like, I'm gonna have to apologize, like, profusely after this one. I felt bad. He really, because he also just bonked out, like, had no food. And when you get to that stage, like, no matter where you are, what bike you're on, you're like just unhappy and hangry. I don't know how we got on this whole topic, but there's your answer, Michael Friedel. Hopefully that was useful for you. Real quick to close it out, what are we riding? You guys already know what I'm riding. I just talked about it. Jared, go.
Well, I just got back from a Sedona trip maybe about a week ago. Rode my SB150 out there. My Yeti SB150, excuse me.
Yeti Cycles SB150, 150 mil travel, 170 the front, 29-inch wheels.
RockShox Zeb, push 11.6 rear shock, I9 wheels.
You're the son of a dentist.
I happen to work at a great bike shop called Worldwide Cyclery.
And I always say that because he actually is the son of a dentist.
Son of a dentist. But yeah, had a great trip. Rode that bike out there. Did Highline, really cool loop.
Yeah, Sedona's amazing.
Incorporated
Such
that trail.
a good place.
Yeah. I just love riding out there. Yeah, I was riding that out there. It was a great time.
Sweet. Liam, what do you got?
I went over mine last week.
Same thing?
Both bikes. Yep. Still on a Yeti SB130. But that's getting replaced soon. But I'll leave that. It's not built yet. And then my Revel Ranger, which I'm having a lot of fun on.
Come on, just tell them what you're going to do. So few people make it to the very end of the podcast.
Right,
just give them a little teaser. Give them the tease. Give them the tease at the very end.
I'm going to do a Revel rail as a mullet build.
Woo! Which is a 165 mil travel, 27.5 bike. And by mullet, he means he's going to put a 29-inch wheel on the front.
Yeah, so I'm going to adjust the suspension a little bit, adjust stack. It'll be cool. Running Revel RW30 wheels.
Crazy.
So they built me up some 2.9 front, 27.5 rear for this. So
the Revel Fusion Fiber.
Yes, Fusion Fiber wheels.
Yeah. So kind of like carbon fiber, but made without epoxy.
Yes.
We have a whole YouTube video on it. It's actually pretty cool. It's a recyclable carbon rim. So when you break it, you can actually use it again. Well, shred it down and make tire levers and other various things out of it. You don't have to throw it in a landfill like what happens to all other carbon rims. So that's pretty interesting. Revel's all about making their whole supply chain and bikes more green and eco-friendly over the years.
So maybe we'll get more info on that once I actually build it, make it a real thing, and figure out the little details that I need to mess with.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be an interesting bike, another weird one that I think people will get interested and intrigued about on the interwebs when we put it out there. And if you've made it this far on the podcast, thank you. And now you got you're the first people to know about Liam's secret. You didn't even tell like half the people that work here. You're just like hiding it from everyone.
I'm excited. It's not even my bike. I'm like, so excited.
It is going to be cool. I think it's going to be
sick.
I think it's going to look rad.
Yeah.
I'm excited to give it a rip too, because I haven't ridden a mullet bike, so
I never have either. Fun. So I figured, why not?
Oh, I thought you'd run one, and that's why. Oh wow, you're really just going for it.
I'm really going for it. Yeah.
Sick.
I love Revel bikes and I love how they feel, so I'm gonna try it on their bikes because
the rail does ride super
the rail
nice,
feels so good, but I mean, I'll just be honest. I like having the 2.9 front wheel. It gives you a lot of confidence. And riding a lot of steep stuff, I don't want to ride a 27.5 bike down it. So this is the best of where I can get the 2.9 front and Revel long travel out back.
Incredible. Well, thank you for listening. Genuinely appreciate it. We will hear you guys, talk to you guys in the next podcast episode, which will be number 79 coming out. I have no idea when. I would like to thank Jared and Liam, and especially DJ Green Machine, formerly DJ Pineapple, but we're calling him DJ Green Machine today because he's wearing a green hoodie and green pants that are like a very similar shade of green. It's Mr. Scott Jackson. Scott, make sure to send this ending part of this clip to all your friends so they can hear about your outfit today. DJ Green Machine, formerly DJ Pineapple. And thank you, Mr. Adam Englander, who helps on the production side of things here and has been patiently waiting as we rambled on this podcast way longer than planned. See you guys later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ramble on.